Hey everybody, Professor Doom here. Thanks everybody for all of your well wishes in the comment sections. I hope you guys are enjoying your meal and your family and your day. Let's begin. A couple of stories out of New York that I find very interesting, and we'll cover this one first, and then we'll talk about this ruling about Katherine Hochul, governor of New York's rule number 13 implementation about quarantines. So does anybody find it interesting, like I do, that Eric Adams was, working with the feds when it came to housing immigrants? Okay, they were being put up in hotels and blah, blah, so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, Eric Adams was stating, well, we don't have the money to keep housing these immigrants. I'm going to force them out onto the streets, give them tents, so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden, the feds just started attacking. Bam! Fraud this, racketeering that. I'm just giving you an example. This probably wasn't the charges that they were leveling against him, but they said that he was up to no good. And they went after him hard. They started seizing stuff in his home. They went after his campaign manager or whoever that campaign lady was that he works with. And now it seems like they've thrown one more little piece at him. It's as if the feds are going after him because he went against everything that they're trying to do. And they needed him to house these migrants. Well, what if he's forcing them out on the streets? They're immigrants. They're here under their own accord. But we all know that there's more to this story, don't we, everybody? I think we've already covered that. But the fact is now they have thrown another little wrench into the story, and some female, after 20 years, 1993, you know what? Eric Adams was the New York police captain. He has been, the mayor for how long? And now, after the feds are going after him, all of a sudden now a complaint gets filed dating back from an alleged sexual assault from 1993. Now, that's what's going on with Eric Adams. Let's take a look at Mrs. Kathy Hochul, governor of New York's rule that she's implemented that was challenged in a court of law, was overturned, and then it was appealed by the Attorney General, and then that rule was reinstated. And I'm going to show you the basis that they used for reinstating the rule. Let's take a look. You know, before I get into the commentary and explain to you everything about lack of standing in a court of law, let me state this. How many people did we see in close proximity to each other without masks on during the January 26th Capitol event? How many? How many of them have been reportedly to have died from COVID-19? None that I know of. How about the George Floyd, Minnesota incident where all kinds of people were out there protesting and didn't have masks on? How many deaths were reported there? None that I'm aware of. How many sporting events, how many concerts, how many events overall that you know of where there are people that are in close proximity to each other and they don't have masks on and no one is dying? Nobody. Yet you have a New York mayor. What is it? Does this virus attack people more in New York than it does anywhere else? Is that what we're to believe? Well, anyway, This Rule 213 is a draconian. It's not a law. It is a rule. It has been put in place by the governor outside of the reach of legislation. This is not an executive order. This is a rule using what? What is it? Who? I'm talking about WHO. What did they? Is there's like some kind of grant of immunity to you for violating the law? See, there's some maxims of law here that any law, and this is where it gets kind of convoluted a little bit because we're talking about a rule. But any law that runs counter to the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, if that law runs counter to it, it is repugnant to the Constitution and therefore null and void. The thing is everything about this rule violates everybody's constitutional right. And let me explain. Do you understand the Eighth Amendment? Being free from cruel and unusual punishment. If you take somebody out and quarantine them for periods of time, and they are separated from their family and they become despondent, depressed, they commit suicide, you are effectually submitting them to mental duress. That, my friends, is cruel and unusual punishment. That goes against that. There are other factors that go against that this rule violates. But let me explain to you now what Rule 213 was all about. How did it get overturned? How did it get reinstated? Why? And what does that mean for New Yorkers? Okay. So the governor, Hochul, she implements this rule, 213. And there were individuals that filed a petition to the courts to overturn the implementation of this rule, which they were effective in doing so. And the courts ruled that the rule was unconstitutional. Okay. The New York Attorney General files an appeal, and the New York Supreme Court reinstates the rule, claiming that the petitioners did not have legal standing. And I'm going to explain to you all what that means and why they are only partially right. Okay? So does everybody understand about this rule and what it all entails? Meaning they can quarantine you. It means they can force vaccinate you. Well, that's according to what that they're alluding to. They're alluding to all of this in this article right here, that for the most extreme cases of sickness, and this doesn't even have to be the vid, everybody. This could be any illness, any serious illness. They can take you out of your home, and if it's that serious, they can house you in the hospital. Okay, so where exactly would they put you if they took you out of your home illegally seized you to take you out of your home when there are less restrictive measures that you can take? Masking, self-quarantining, things like this that would not violate somebody's human rights or their constitutional rights. Because I guarantee you, once you start doing this and people find that they have no hope, there are going to be people killing themselves. If they kill themselves, what does that do? Well, do you think Mrs. Hochul is going to go, oh, my bad, I should have thought about this before I even implemented this garbage? They're not. This is the kind of things that are going to happen. Now, here is what legal standing means, and I'm going to show you the three-pronged tier of the requirements to to ensure that a petitioner has legal standing in a court of law. Let's take a look at the legal standing that this judge said the petitioners did not have. Is where we're talking about standing in law, legal standing in court. In this case, the petitioners brought their petition to overturn the rule through the court. And standing is a gatekeeper tool that determines whether hearings should be held and who should be heard. It can control the issues that are decided and the interests that are represented in those decisions. What are the three-pronged elements required for a petitioner to have standing in that court? And these are irreducible. It means you cannot minimize. Okay? Does everybody understand irreducible? So these have to be met. Constitutional minimum of standing consists of these three elements. The plaintiff must have 1, suffered an injury in fact. 2, that it is fairly traceable to the challenged conduct of the defendant. And 3, that is likely to be redressed by a favorable judicial decision. So the court has decided to reinstate the rule claiming that the petitioners didn't have standing because, well, they haven't suffered an injury. Here's the problem. Once you implement the rule, which it's been, of course, it's been enforced now, the rule is in place, and someone is taken out of their home and they're forced with medications, or they're forced with a vaccine, or they're forced to do this, or they're forced away from their family in some kind of secluded, they therefore then become injured by the rule. But guess what? Their right to redress becomes chilled, meaning that they have no way to seek redress from the courts because they're quarantined away from everything. So do you guys see how this works? The judge should have known that by implementing this rule, and if someone is quarantined, it's going to quell their right to redress of the courts to fix the injury that then they would have standing in court to challenge. Does everybody understand that? That is why he should have granted, even though the rule is that it's not irreducible. The fact is that it should have acted on its own, sua sponte, to say that if I implement this rule, it's going to violate the Constitution and people will not be able to challenge when they are injured because they will be quarantined away from any possibilities of entering a court to challenge the rule then. Hopefully, everybody understands that. Right now, as it stands, as I've already pointed out to everybody, how is it that the state of New York wants to apply some draconian rules to situations that don't even warrant it when we already look at all that's going on? We can look at our sports stadiums. You can look at the concerts. You can look at everything. How many people are winding up in the hospital and dying? Is it just in New York this is happening? Because I haven't been hearing about it in New York either. Anyway, I just want to show you what their rule would look like. And here's another problem, folks. Hopefully you guys stay tuned this long because I want you to understand this. There are 3 states in the United States that once one of them implements something like this, the other 2 states always seem to follow that act. Rule 213, New York, Florida, and California will be soon to follow. If California commenced with the three strikes law in 1996, New York, Florida, and others followed. Florida implements a rule or a law. California, New York are usually the first to follow. So what I'm telling you is keep your eye on California and Florida and Texas and Illinois. Those are just some of the biggest states that you will notice, but Florida and California, keep your eyes on those. Now, what would something look like if all of a sudden many, many more states started doing exactly what is entailed in this Rule 213? Well, let's take a look, because there just so happens to be an animated short called Beyond the Reset that is going to show you exactly what something like this could look like.
Good morning. We are bringing to you today's most important news from around the world. Despite all the extraordinary efforts, the government and health system workers are still struggling to bend the curve of growing cases caused by the latest variant of the virus. 5 more people died today, and 30 million tested positively. Citizens are now required to wear masks when they step out to the balconies of their isolation facilities, and take them off only when they are back to the safety of their rooms. Stay compliant. Stay isolated. Stay safe. And now, on to other news. As the whole planet went on the righteous crusade against climate change and global warming, we are excited to spread the word about another successful project. As science tells us, during the night, plants release CO2 into the atmosphere. CO2 is a powerful greenhouse gas that dramatically contributes to global warming. But don't worry. Almost 100,000 square miles of South American rainforest has been cleared, and this area is used to construct one of the largest solar panel fields in the world that will provide us with a tremendous amount of clean energy. We will keep fighting the deadly forests and defeat climate change. That is all for today. Stay tuned for tomorrow's news.
As you can see, this video goes on for another 20 minutes. And I will leave links in the description box in case you guys haven't seen it. It's a really, really interesting piece right here. But that's exactly what this is talking about with this draconian rule, right? Quarantining them into quarantine facilities. What exactly do they mean by quarantine facilities? And isn't it interesting that this is exactly what they have named this right here, a quarantine facility. Everything will be brought to you via a drone. God, didn't we see that exactly in the World Economic Forum videos the World Economic Forum put out about, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Everything that you need will be brought to you via a drone. Well, as you can see, whoever created this right here took everything in mind of what has been reported on about the master plan of the World Economic Forum, the master plan behind their unleashing of this, the reason why you have to roll up your sleeve, if you know what I'm talking about. Take a look at the video, and well, that's about all I can say about that. Hopefully you guys understood the legal implications of the argument to this case. Thanks, everybody.